Dr. Kethavar's four eyes rolled in synchronized disgust as he reviewed the latest batch of applications to the Galactic Institute of Advanced Sciences. For 3,000 years, the Institute had been the premier educational facility for the galaxy's most brilliant minds: Zephyrians with their crystalline logic matrices, Velthari with their quantum processing neural networks, and the ancient Mordun, whose consciousness existed partially in higher dimensions. And now, somehow, a human had been accepted. "This is preposterous," Kethavar muttered, his tentacles writhing in agitation. The human's application file flickered on his holographic display. Sarah Chen, age 19, from the backwater planet called Earth. Her species had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago, mere infants in galactic terms. The Zephyrian professor, Crystal 9, materialized beside him in a shower of prismatic light. "The human arrives tomorrow for the fundamental physics course. The council insists we treat her fairly." Kethavar's laugh was a wet, gurgling sound. Fairly? Their entire species still believes in primitive concepts like quantum mechanics and relativity. They haven't even discovered trans-dimensional energy matrices or consciousness particle entanglement. The next morning, Sarah Chen stepped into the vast lecture hall of the Institute. The architecture defied human comprehension: walls that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously, gravity fields that shifted to accommodate different species' physiologies, and air that somehow contained the perfect atmospheric mixture for every breathing creature in the galaxy. She was small among the assembled beings. The Velthari towered over her with their elongated skulls pulsing with bioluminescent thought patterns. The Mordun appeared as shifting shadows with eyes like burning stars. Even the plant-like florons rustled with condescending whispers as she took her seat. Dr. Kethavar began his lecture on universal energy constants. As every civilized species knows, the Mordun constant governs all energy transfer in the universe. This has been proven across 17 million star systems over the past 10 millennia. Sarah raised her hand. The entire hall fell silent. "Yes, human." Kethavar's voice dripped with barely concealed disdain. "I've been reading about this constant, and I think there might be an error in the base calculations. If you account for quantum fluctuations at the subatomic level and apply relativistic corrections..." The hall erupted in what could only be described as alien laughter. Crystal 9's form flickered with amusement patterns. A Velthari student's skull pulsed bright orange, their equivalent of hysterical laughter. "Child," Kethavar said, his tentacles weaving dismissive patterns, "you speak of quantum fluctuations as if they were real. These are mathematical fantasies your species invented to explain phenomena beyond your comprehension. The Mordun constant is absolute." Sarah's jaw set with determination. "May I use the laboratory after hours? I'd like to run some experiments." "By all means." Kethavar waved a tentacle. "Perhaps failing spectacularly will teach you humility." For 3 weeks, Sarah worked alone in the Institute's advanced laboratory. The equipment was beyond anything on Earth. Particle accelerators that could split quarks into their component thoughts, reality distortion chambers that could test physical laws under impossible conditions, and measurement devices accurate to 17 decimal places. She started simple, replicating basic galactic experiments. Then she began introducing variables that the galactic scientists had long ago dismissed as irrelevant. She incorporated principles that her species had discovered through necessity: the creativity born from limitation, the innovation that came from working with primitive tools. On a Tuesday evening, the laboratory's containment alarms began screaming. Kethavar rushed to the lab, followed by half the faculty. Inside, they found Sarah surrounded by impossible readings. Energy levels that should have been constants were fluctuating. Particles were behaving in ways that violated 3,000 years of established science. "What have you done?" Kethavar demanded. Sarah looked up from her calculations, her eyes bright with excitement. "I think I figured it out. Your Mordun constant isn't actually constant. It's an average, a really good average that works for most practical purposes across large scales. But when you zoom in, really zoom in, there's something else happening." She pulled up her holographic display. The math was elegant in its complexity, incorporating principles the galactic community had never considered. She had taken their advanced theories and somehow made them more advanced. The constant shifts based on the observer's frame of reference, the local density of consciousness particles and quantum field fluctuations at scales you haven't been measuring. But here's the beautiful part. When you account for these variables, you can manipulate the constant. Kethvar's tentacles had gone completely still. Manipulate? That's impossible. The constant governs energy transfer throughout the universe. If you could change it, you could revolutionize power generation, create more efficient FTL drives, and solve the heat death problem the Mordoon have been worried about. Sarah's grin was infectious. I've already built a prototype. She activated a device no larger than her fist. The energy readings in the lab spiked, then stabilized at levels that should have been theoretically impossible. The device was producing more energy than it consumed, not by breaking thermodynamics, but by locally adjusting the fundamental constants that governed energy transfer. The silence stretched for long moments. Then Crystal 9 began to flicker, in rapid, excited patterns, the Zephyrian equivalent of applause. The Velthari student's skull had shifted to deep purple, indicating profound respect. Even the ancient Morden shadows seemed to pulse with something approaching wonder. Kethvar stared at the readings, then at Sarah, then back at the readings. His voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. In 50,000 years of galactic civilization, no one has ever questioned the fundamental constants. Sarah shrugged, a very human gesture that somehow transcended species barriers. Maybe you needed someone who didn't know they were supposed to be constant. Within a month, Sarah's modifications to the Mordoon constant had been verified and implemented across the galaxy. Power grids became 90% more efficient overnight. FTL travel became accessible to species that had been trapped in their home systems for millennia. The theoretical heat death of the universe was pushed back by several billion years. The Galactic Institute renamed itself the Chen Institute of Revolutionary Sciences. They established new courses in applied impossibility and primitive innovation theory. Sarah became the youngest professor in galactic history, teaching advanced classes on thinking outside universal constants. Dr. Kethvar, now her research partner, often reflected on the irony. The galaxy had spent millennia perfecting their understanding of the universe, creating elegant theories and absolute constants. It took a human, a species barely out of their scientific diapers, to remind them that the universe was under no obligation to conform to their understanding of it. In the end, humanity's greatest contribution to galactic science wasn't their advanced technology or sophisticated theories. It was their willingness to question everything, even the laws of physics themselves. And throughout the galaxy, whenever young scientists felt constrained by established wisdom, their professors would tell them the story of Sarah Chen, the human student who looked at the immutable laws of the universe and simply asked, "But what if they're not?"